Hello everyone. In this video now we will talk about the R programming part for our course. Um, we have the instructions already about installation of R and RStudio. So I will not review those. This is the RStudio software that we are using for our programming purposes, and you can see we can create an empty script and write our R code and save it to use it later on. We have the environment. You can see the variables that we create and all kinds of data. It will be displayed here as we work, and we can see our plots, for example, on the pane at the right corner here. And we have the console where we can also print some results, or we can also run some basic code in this part as well. You have also a working directory in R, similar to the other programming languages. So you can see if I apply get working directory function here in R, it will return me my current working directory. And we will be working actually with different R packages. So if you want to use an existing package that you already installed, you can use the library and then use the quotation here. For example, if I want to use this package, I will just call library and enter the name of the package in quotation. Okay. If you want to install a package, then you will use install and then packages here, as you can see, and enter the name of the package, like whatever. I mean, we will be working with different packages later on, but if you try to install something, then it will automatically go to the appropriate web page and install the package that you are looking for. So it's quite straightforward. And also, if there are certain dependencies of your package, then it will also show up here, and it mentions that it is also installing the dependencies. Okay, so you can see it here. I can do these operations, of course, in my R script. I can just write the same things here. If I'm going to call this library, for example, this package every time, then I can write it at the beginning of my R script here. I can keep it here. Okay, so that's up to you. And if you are another important feature in R is to use the documentation, and it's quite simple to check the documentation for a certain function. For example, you can use the question mark, and then let's say I'm looking for more information about the function mean, okay, which takes the arithmetic mean of a sequence of numbers, let's say. And if I just use question mark and write the name of the function, it will return me this explanation from the documentation. Or you might check other functions. I don't know, for example, let's say sum, just a summation, and it will display the again documentation. It will find it from and you can read the details about this function. And basically, if you type some, let's say you want to do some basic arithmetic operations in R, in our code, let's say we have a few lines of code, and then we might want to let's say assign z as x minus y. And we can save the script. Let's say I have a specific folder here for R programming. With this name. Now I saved it as example1.r, and if I want to run, let's say this 3 lines of code, I can click run, I can select it, or I can run just 1 line of code by putting this cursor, and then if I run, it will just run line 1. Now it is in line 2, so I can click, and as you see, it moves step by step. So we can click run, and then we can see the result for z, let's say. And we can see that z equals to 70 as we expected. For mathematical operations, you can use the console again as a calculator. You can do some multiplication, you can do some division, all these operations, or you can, let's say, take the power 3 to the power 3, or we can use this double multiplication sign. You can see this is also giving us the power operation, taking the 3 to the power 4. So these are all simple arithmetic operations. We can run these in R, or we can also write these as a script. If we want to save it, for example, you can divide 14 by 2 plus, let's say, 1, okay? And you can assign this to, let's say, x. And we can save it. You can run, and if you like, you can display the result. Or, for example, if you want to take the square root of a number, again, the square root function is sqrt. Or we might want to take the exponential, let's say a equals to exponential 3. And you can display the result again. Just run this selected part. We can see that a equals to this number. So the mathematical operations are as follows, like this. Again, if you, let's say, assign a number, a specific value, let's say x equals to 10, then I can also iterate this value as adding another value and reassign, for example, as my x. And it will increment the x by 1, okay? Other than these basic operations, we work with the vectors, and in the vectors we use this single letter C to creating a vector, and it's quite straightforward in R. You can enter the numbers that you want to, let's say, input into this vector, and we can display my vector here. Let's run this part only. And we can see that my vector is given as we input these numbers. Of course, these numbers we can change to decimals as well. Some of them might be like exact integers, some might be the real numbers, for example, so 1.3, 3.0, 1.0. And as you see, once I enter these decimals, now all of them are recognized as, they are represented as decimals, okay? If you want to check the type of a variable in R, we can use the class built-in function, and that's given here, and it will return us the type of the variable that we input into the class function. You can also try, for example, to create another vector. Let's call this myVec2, and again use the single letter C. Let's say we have some negative numbers this time. And then let's now try to create a third vector which will contain myVec and myVec2, these two vectors. And let's print. So let's run this whole thing once. And we can see now we have the first myVector 1.3, 3.0, etc., 42, and then we have these negative numbers. So we are able to create these, we are able to combine these two vectors as a single vector, again using the letter C. Okay, so we can actually apply this to combine two different vectors together. That's again a useful operation that we will be using later on. Other than this, we can also create a comment. I mean, let's mention that for commands. So this is a command which is not going to be executed by R, but it will give us some instructions about what we are doing. So in order to increase the readability of our code for the other users or also for our own, we need to insert appropriate commands to explain what we are doing, so that will help the readability of our codes basically. And we can, for example, say create a sequence in R, and we can use the, let's say, x equals to 1 to 100, okay, and then check out what is x. So this double column operator helps us to create a sequence of numbers from 1 to 100 consecutively. Or you can start from another point as well. We don't have to start from 1. Okay, so we can start from 30 and go all the way to 40. There's another example here. And as you can see, it's creating a sequence of numbers consecutively, one by one. Sometimes you might also do certain operations and, for example, let's say x equals to 3.3, and then I want to create another variable, let's say b, starting from x, and then all the way to, I put a parenthesis, and maybe I have some other arithmetic operations, for example, let's say 20 minus 10. So we can actually use this double column. The starting point is given with another variable, which is called as x, and the end point can also include certain, I mean, we have some arithmetic operations, but from the parenthesis, this result will be the end point of the sequence, and then we can display what's the value. So we will see the starting point is 3.3, and we are going all the way to 9.3. The end point, which is 20 minus 10, equals to 10. So we will not be exceeding this end point, but we will come all the way to the nearest value, right, to the end point that is defined here as 10. So we will come, the closest is 9.3. So it will not go to 10.3. It will end just before this endpoint, or exactly at the endpoint if we are doing the integer counting, then you might end up at 10, right? So this is how this double column works to create a sequence. We can also use the sequence function, so we can also create sequences with seq function. There's also this function we can utilize. In this function, we are going to use seq, and we can say from, let's say, from 5 to, so we can define the range using from and to up to, let's say, 20, and we can also specify our increment with this by argument. Let's say we want to increase the sequence by 3, okay, and just display the result. So we see we are incrementing with the step size equal to 3. So this function, again, quite flexible. You can use in different ways. You can, let's say, start from, this time let's do a minus and reverse. We go to 0. From minus 20, we want to go to 0. And this time I need to go, let's say, I will go, let's say, positive. I will add 2 every time from minus 2 to 0. Okay, and then again you can display. So we go from minus 20 all the way to 0 by increments of 2. You can also change these increments to a minus sign, that's fine. So this time we can go, let's say, from, let's go from minus 10 to minus 20, for example, okay? And we can see from minus 10, we increment by minus 2, so we are going all the way to minus 20. So you can experiment and try other combinations as you like with this sequence function. And let's move on to another useful operation in R that we will be using often, and that's the sort, let's say, sorting a vector, okay, in increasing or decreasing order. And we have the sort function for this, okay. It's a intuitive name. So for example, if I want to sort a vector, okay, I have, let's say, a vector of numbers. I'm just going to create inside of the sort function. So let's say I have 2.5 minus 1 minus 10. Let's say we have 3.44, and I want to specify decreasing equals false, okay. And let's call this as A, and let me display as A. Okay, so from our vector, this is the vector that we are sorting now, and the smallest is minus 10. So decreasing is false, that means it is increasing, okay. So we start with the smallest, minus 10, all the way to the largest, 3.44, okay. Now you can change this a little bit. You can make this decreasing order and run this again. So this time we have the largest as the first element, and then going towards the minimum, the smallest element. Okay, so this is the basic idea in sorting. I think it's not that complex, but you can try on your own some other examples as well. Another, again, very useful operation for us is finding the a vector length. Finding the length of a vector. And for this purpose, we will use the length function. Again, you can create the vector here if you like. For example, I have a vector of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say. Or let's put another value here. So the length is equals to 5 because we have a vector with 5 elements, okay? And if you want, you can assign this to a variable, let's say L equals to length. I mean this, then this is the L is equal to 5. Or you can, of course, create the vector first. You can do this operation first. You can try all these combinations as you like, and you can run this. Again, the result is going to be the same. Okay. So another important operation, especially working with the vectors, we can subset an element extraction. Okay. So for this purpose, let's create a vector first. By the way, you can use this assignment operator or the equality operator. I mean, both of them works the same way. If you are, but in R, it is more common to use this less than symbol and then assign to a variable. So let's say we have a vector -3. Let's put some also decimals. 4, 5, let's say 10, and some other values as you like. You can change these. And then, for example, again, if you want to check the length of your vector, you can use length, right? You can run this first. So we have 7 elements, okay? And then if you want to access some elements of your vector, let's say the first one, the second element, the third element, and so on. So you can run this to check what's the result. So the first element, as we expected, is equal to 5. The second element is -2.3. The third element is 4, and so on. So actually we can access the elements, as you can see, by the index. Okay, we are using the index starting with 1. The first element is the index equals to 1. The second element is index equals to 2, and so on. And if you want to access to the last element, for example, you can also use the length function, and you can access the last element, because the length function will return the size of this vector, and that's going to be the index value of the last element. Okay, and then we can move on. You can also actually assign this as I just mentioned. So I can assign this length of the vector to a variable called as L, and instead of running the function every time, actually we can just assign this to this L, and then you can use this L. So let's say B equals to my vec, and suppose I want to go to the element 1 before the last element, so I can use L -1. Okay, so this is also a good way, I mean, to access to the last element or the one before the last element. You can just use the length of the vector and increment, I mean, minus with a minus sign here if necessary. And another thing, I mean, again, You can also create a sequence of values if you like. I mean, from like 1 to L. You can assign this to a variable once we know the length of the vector. The L is already given as 7, so you can use this also to create a sequence or do some other operations with this. Another useful operation is, let's say I have this vector already defined, my vec. My vector is defined here. And then if I specify the index as minus sign, in the previous examples, we have, as you see, we have indices as denoted with positive integers, 1, 2, 3, up to the largest value. But this time, I have a minus 1 as the index. So what is going to happen if I call this my vector with minus 1 index here? So this is the vector I defined here, and when I put this minus 1, actually it excluded the first element from the vector and returned the remaining. Okay, so we can put a comment here, excludes the first element. Okay, and you can assign this to another, for example, variable if you want to use this later on, and you can call this as a, for example. You can try other. You can try, for example, my vec. Let's say minus 2. So let's run this first. So original vector is given here, as we see. So let's run this together. So you have this, as you can see, we have now 5, 4, these numbers are given. But what is missing is now the second element. As we don't observe now minus 2.3. It's missing. I mean, now the second element is excluded. Second element, okay. So you can change this, of course, whichever element you want to exclude. You can put a minus to that index, and in R, that will mean to exclude that specific element from your vector. So that's, I think that's a useful operation. So we will stop the video here, and these basics of R we will continue in our next video. Thank you for watching.